is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of September 9th, 2015. We have 3 items on our agenda, the minutes and 2 hearings. If anyone is here for the 100 Main Street, that has been taken off our agenda. Firstly, we can't do the February minutes because we don't have enough people to do that, right? Yeah, because Paul and John are not here, so we've only got 2. Did everyone look at the minutes for the July meeting? They were extremely straightforward.
I don't think I was there.
You were not there.
It was just you and me and Joe.
Yes, so you, Joe, and I.
No problem with the minutes.
Okay. You good with that, Joe? Okay, yeah. I move to approve the minutes. All in favor? Yes, that's July 8th. Okay. And, I always do this. So the next item on our agenda is a public hearing on an application filed by Stephen Seacon, Architect PC, as agent for Doug Williams for 6 variances to construct an accessory dwelling and addition to the main dwelling on property located at 74 Maple Street. Who will be heard in this application?
I will. My name's Steve Seacon, I'm an architect for Doug Williams and the applicant. I just wanted to set up on it.
Sure. Before you go too far, you've got some real issues, I think, that you might be better off dealing with before you come to any boards. You know, in the application, it appears as though one of your sidewalls is on someone else's property. And the sooner you correct that with less capital in your project, I would think the better off you would be.
The existing is currently over. The new portion above would be set in to be inside the property line.
You feel comfortable with that?
Well, we don't want to make it worse than it currently is, but we certainly don't want to encroach on somebody's property.
But I think the question is, if you do construction to that property at this point, do you trigger an action? Because you're now constructing on essentially addition to a property which you don't technically own.
But if we're on our side of the property line, I don't see...
The whole thing is, but you're not on your side of the property line.
No,
The new part would be, but
Right.
the old part is not.
It's my understanding is it's simply a non-conforming condition. I mean, are you looking for us to get like an easement from? Or?
I wonder if we even have a more technical problem that the applicant has to be the owner of the property that's the subject of the application. So if this isn't a joint application by you and your neighbor, I don't even know if we can entertain it.
Because of the encroachment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right, it's his property.
But we're not building on his...
But you're extending something.
Right, you're extending a nonconformity.
And which is, as if you're doing it, we have to look at it as if you're doing it, something new that doesn't conform.
Well, at what point, if we do any work to the property, is that then an issue?
Well, your neighbor presumably at any time could say, take it off my property. And, you know, it's probably a lot better for him to, a lot better for you if he says that now than if he says that after you've extended this structure and built a second structure on the same piece of property.
Could I say something? I don't think it's on their property. It's like an inch or two from the edge, but I don't think I could have gotten clear title if it was on that property.
We're only going by what
We're only
the
going by the
notice
documents that we
says.
have.
That would be the question. You wouldn't have gotten clear title, you couldn't have financed it
Right, but we
if it
did
was.
get clear title. Yes, I have clear title. It's a, it doesn't go onto their property. I think that, there was a time that the chimney on the original survey from like 1957 or whatever it was, the chimney was on the adjacent property. But somewhere along the line, and I don't know when, that issue was corrected and that chimney is no longer there. And the house, you couldn't put it there now, but it's like a couple of inches inside the boundary line.
Your site plan prepared through the use of a surveyor shows that you have an encroachment by an existing building. The building itself, not a chimney, not a portion of it, but here, I can show you on the plan.
Okay.
And he even called it out, an encroachment. So this corner of this part of this building is on your property. So if you get an easement, get a license to use the property, do whatever you
I
need
must
to do.
already have all of those things, otherwise I couldn't possibly get clear title.
Well, your deed would show that.
We submitted the deed. You looked at this.
Yeah, definitely have title reports, clear title insurance.
So this is the survey by itself. It shows that that's there.
Well, I mean, what your title says is that you have title to a certain plot, but what the surveyor's report says is that the house extends beyond
That plot.
what's referred to in your deed.
Well, this survey's in the title, or it was supposed to be. I mean, I assume it was read into the title and was submitted to the title company.
Did you have this surveyed before you bought it?
Yes.
It seems to me at a minimum, we need something from a title company making clear that you have a legal right to be where you are on the property, or perhaps on your neighbor's property.
I guess the other issue I have is that I really think you should be at the planning board before you come here. In that the way to build a second, we don't generally give variances to build a second structure. That can much better be done through the planning board, where you separate off the piece of land. And I would think that they would have trouble with the plan that you submitted for the house on DeVoe side. It meets our setback according to the code, but it's very inconsistent with the look of the rest of DeVoe. And,
Really?
well, yeah. Yeah, if you run your eye, I mean, those houses are generally set back about 10 feet, and you're talking about 25 feet.
And if you go directly across the street from the property that I'm on, the setback is pretty much zero. Literally. And there's several houses like that over there.
Well, but there are no houses that are 25, are there?
25 what?
Feet.
Feet setback from the street. which is what your proposal is, approximately.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Okay, can I
do you want it to be closer? I mean, I'm just asking.
Well,
so.
you know, none of the other houses have, you know, kind of a parking area in front of the house. And I just think that citing a house, you know, and separating off a piece of property are more the purview of the planning board than it is of our board, you know, making variances here and there.
Can I explain the
Sure.
rationale just a little bit? Part of the reason not to subdivide is because we can't create two non-conforming lots, right? So we are over the 7,500 square feet, which enables us to have 3 residences. The ability to have a separate structure, we know is not covered. You know, we understand that. What the purpose of having the separate structure and having the parking in the front is simply a function of the width of the property and trying to be good neighbors and not having, you know, more parking adjacent to other properties. So we're shielding the parking with planting.
I understand that issue, yeah.
And, you know, whether it's, you know, 3 units that are all conjoined or 2 units separate and 1 separate, you know, on the Maple side, seem to have better knit into the fabric of what that area was more like. When you look, you know, and I have some, you know, different studies for this, of how the houses are spaced and so forth. What we're doing isn't really crazy.
But what I mean, without commenting on whether it's a good plan or a bad plan, I think we have a hurdle to get over, which is that the reason a deed is part of the application is that if you said I want to build something 10 feet onto my neighbor's yard, we would have no authority to allow you to do that. That's involves a lot of property law. So I think if it's correct, if it's incorrect, then maybe you can bring us something that shows us it's incorrect. But if the survey is correct that you're encroaching, I don't think we have the authority to approve something that might affect not just the interests of the neighbor, but the actual property rights of the neighbor.
We'll get it clarified immediately, where this sits with respect to the property line. But can we, so, you know, to make best use of everybody's time tonight, can we get some feedback? And I know that, I'm not fishing, but I would welcome feedback on the case that it was on our side of the property line, in terms of, because we studied many different renditions of this plan, trying to locate parking in areas that are not, you know, objectionable to the neighbors, still try to get, you know, 6 cars in, and knowing that, as everybody knows, most of the current parking is all non-conforming down there. We don't want to make a bad situation worse, but I think you'll agree that right now it's kind of like a smile with missing teeth. You know, this, you come along DeVoe and it's just like, you know, overgrown, ramshackle. You know, there should be something there that's nice and helps to, you know, address some housing needs. And I think, you know, that's really the spirit of what we're trying to do. So if there's, you know, anything in that regard you might point us towards.
Did you have any renditions where you had the parking around the back? I mean, that just seems to be, I mean, maybe other people aren't troubled by the street line, you know, but
No,
that to me is very important. you know, and not being consistent with the rest of the houses on your side, you know, on that side of the street, seems to me to be, it's crazy, it meets the code. But to me, it's a bad plan.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay. We did go over a couple of things like that in different parking situations. And it was my feeling that
Can you
we
use the
would,
microphone, please? Sorry.
Yes.
There's a microphone, it is portable, it does sit right now.
okay.
Yeah, you can take that with you. if you want.
Okay, I'm not used to the microphone. So it was my thought that it would be ideal to have a situation where the tenants in the rental property and the tenants in the main house, which would be me, would be able to go in the backyard and be separated from everything. And so I was looking at it from the point of view of usage of the backyard. You know, it's a, I don't know, I think that people like to be able to go in the back and sort of, as much as possible, get away from the street activity. That was my thinking.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, my objective is to try and make the best thing you possibly can in terms of, you know, living space and a rental for what you have there and improve the neighborhood in every way. So, you know, I'm saying that because I'm completely open to any ideas to change it, but that was the thinking about it. You know, it would actually be, I looked at it and you would have to put like a driveway down the edge of the driveway. I mean, the edge of the property.
Yeah.
And then go around, and then, so you're taking up more space, and then it starts to restrict the amount of free space in the back to keep people off the back. I mean, keep people out of the front, you know? So,
It's a matter of perspective.
yes.
You're looking at it from the perspective of yourself as the homeowner for that particular property. That is the perspective of the street and the community. And if you were planning that street and that community, you would have probably put one house closer to the street line at Maple and the other house closer to the street line on DeVoe, which is how you would normally develop a pattern of houses on the street. And you would have your parking to the side or to the rear, but you wouldn't have it in front of the house. So, you know, if you're looking at it as a neighborhood perspective, it may not be the best solution, which is why I think the chairman asked about talking to the planning board, because we don't generally deal with siting in that sense of the use of the word siting. But what you're proposing would not be a natural way to site a house that's off the street.
Can I also just add one other component of this, is that, you know, the elevation between DeVoe and Maple, you know, we have about an 11 or 12-foot grade. So, you know, in conjunction with, you know, the parking concerns, we looked at opportunities to use the grade to our advantage, meaning to come in from Maple and, you know, under, you know, basically the parking, you know, under the new house at DeVoe to take advantage of, you know, but that again, as Mr. Williams was saying, it gobbles up a lot of
Takes space.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, you know, we're trying to make something to also meet, you know, impervious coverage at a minimum, and still make a pleasant backyard, and, you know, still have it kind of make sense, you know, for parking for both houses, and that's ultimately why we ended up with this scheme. But, you know, we could, you know, certainly look at another solution if that's objectionable.
Yeah, and I guess I really, you know, would encourage you that the best first stop, I really think, is the planning board, you know, because if you come to us with a plan, you know, and you're asking for all these variances, we have to say to ourselves, well, you know, that's an awful lot to ask. if the planning board works with you and comes to something that needs variances because it's a better project with the variances, then, you know, we look at it a little bit differently too. You know, and so I think coming from that direction is really a better place because, you know, I think you can make a house, make the case that a house fits on DeVoe just like it does on Maple. And, you know, it's just a difficult project to meet all the rules and regulations, but it's a tight area, and most houses there don't meet all the rules and regulations. You know, and I don't think that necessarily meeting them is the standard. It's really fitting in is the standard. Maybe our lawyer friends would disagree with me on that, but you know, I mean, the sense of neighborhood is very important.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. I definitely agree with that. So, I mean,
So I guess I would encourage you to try and get your legal situation with regard to your side lot satisfied, and then talk with the planning board.
well, I
I
have
apologize for
a
the runaround.
question. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So it's my understanding that, like, worst case, the house that's there, exactly the way it is, could be renovated exactly the way it is. And that would have no bearing on the request to put something in the back on the DeVoe Street side, is that correct?
Possibly. You have an encroachment, you're actually on someone else's property. For a board to give you permission to build something while you're on someone else's property, the board cannot grant that.
Well, no, he meant just
No.
just renovating
If he
the
doesn't do
inside.
any new construction.
Correct.
Right.
I would imagine
No.
there'd be nothing then.
Right, if I left it exactly as is.
Right.
And then just built the other part on the DeVoe Street side.
Possibly, but you should settle with your neighbor. At one point in time, your neighbor could say, okay, you're on my property, either
Remove
pay
it.
me some fantastic amount of
You
money.
can start
You know,
charging
or-
you back rent.
Well, believe me, I'm gonna be calling my lawyer and the title company to
Yeah,
ask.
yeah,
them
and, you know,
to
it just
make
seems
sure
to me
it's
that, you know,
clear.
you're in a strong, the less money you have into this project, the less he can hold you up, if you will.
Right.
But I
And
don't-
just speaking pragmatically.
I think you've got two issues that have got to get addressed. I think one is the issue with the encroachment. I think the other issue is when you look at the site elevation, it is an awkward structure of the two homes. They look more like a home and an accessory home rather than two independent structures with the way you have it laid out on the site. And, you know, we don't technically do site planning, but we do a variance, and it might influence my opinion, for example, on approving a variance for the parking in the front, given how awkward I think it really looked in
Right.
terms of the character of the neighborhood, or the character of what I think is good design, quite frankly.
Okay.
So, would you like to temporarily withdraw your application and resubmit it?
Do we look for a planning board recommendation first to come back? Or
Yeah,
do we-
I
or do we-
think it's probably best to go to the planning board. Can we continue them until they go through the planning board, and that way you don't have to renotice, and it'll cost you less money, and, you know, we don't like to leave things open-ended, but I think in this case, we should.
Okay.
You know, and if it turns out you don't have to come back to us, then we'll just close it down. Mr. Steinschneider, may have some pragmatic advice.
Just practical, nothing to do with this application per se, but my understanding is that if there are variances, Pat Steinschneider, resident of Dobbs Ferry, I don't know that they would be able to have an application before the planning board if there are variances that are required. I don't know if that's changed, but Mr. Plotkin, when he was chair, would never let a matter be heard for site planning if there were variances first required. But what you guys can do, which seems like an absolutely perfect way to keep this going and working in the right direction, is you can refer this to the planning board, ask them to get far enough into the site planning of it so that you'd be able to see where they're headed with that, and have that then justify or give you the reasons that a variance shouldn't be granted. So that would be the right way for the two boards to be working together on this.
Okay, then we will refer it to the planning board.
Oh, okay.
And I'll talk to Steve Hunter, and he's the chairman of the planning board.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me just ask, so when I call up my attorney and the title company, what should I be asking for on your all's behalf? And like, or do we even know?
I think you should tell your lawyer these problems have been presented to you and let the lawyer advise you on what you need.
You know, that you got a clean title, but that the survey indicates that there may be problems.
Right,
We'll,
Okay.
we'll speak to our surveyor first thing tomorrow morning and then get back in touch with the
Okay.
attorney. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Good luck, and
Okay.
we hope
Thank
to
you.
see you soon.
okay, great, thank you,
Sure.
appreciate your help.
Thank you, Pat. The next application is a public hearing on an application filed by Mr. Russell and Ms. Corrales for 2 variances to construct a second-story addition to an existing home on property located at 12 Livingston Avenue. Who will be heard on this application?
Good evening, Board. My name is Uzziah Cooper, architect, and I'll be presenting the application. Do you mind if I use the...
Oh, no, please do.
Would you like me to put up the board? It's the same PDF that would be...
As long as we can see it.
Easier to see on the whiteboard?
Yeah, also have a television.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you're using that, just stand to the side so that the people at home can see. Sometimes people address us and stand right in front of that, and it's,
And you wouldn't believe what our ratings are.
yeah, you know, right,
The show.
you know, people just start tuning out. It's not pretty.
Okay, good. Can you see that well?
Yes.
All right, good. So our variance application is for side yard variance, 9.39 feet, existing non-conforming side yard, and a rear yard of 21.45 feet, existing non-conforming. So, this is just the neighborhood, the surrounding house, actually. We have the 2 neighbors here, and then the existing property, the existing house at 12.
Mr. Cooper, could I just ask you, could you use, just walk with the microphone as you're
Sure.
referring to things, and it'll come out clearer for the people at home.
Sure. So we have the 2 neighbors, the existing, the property in question, 12 Livingston in the middle, and the neighbor to the right, and then these are the existing elevations, site plan, aerial map. Thank you. Thank you. So if we look at the site plan, we can see that on this side, we have the 9.39 issue in lieu of 10 feet. And so for the variance, we want to consider the 5 factors: undesirable change to the neighborhood, And this project, by granting these variances, I think that, and you can see the elevations here, it would be more of a desirable factor to the neighborhood because our neighborhood is mostly comprising of two-story houses here. And I also have other pictures, but I'm sure you went to the neighborhood and took a look at it yourselves.
We're very familiar with the
Right.
neighborhood.
So these houses here are the smaller houses in the neighborhood, and by allowing us to go up for a second floor, it would actually bring the property more to the value of the current neighborhood
Right.
today. Second factor, alternative to variances. It's our humble opinion that in the pursuit of this variance for 8 inches for the side yard, that this elevation here given it's much more visually appealing than having to step back the right side of the home 8 inches and having a shed roof running the whole length of the house.
Right,
So-
you're not creating more, you're just extending a non-conformity.
Right, it's an
You're not-
existing,
you're
right,
not-
it's
you're not
existing
encroaching.
non-conforming,
Right.
and all we're doing is extending the
Yeah.
existing non-conforming. And at the front, you can see there's a cantilever, but there's no, it doesn't encroach on the front yard.
Correct.
So, substantiability. Variance is very minimal. Impact on the environment, by going up over the existing nonconformity, we have no impact on the environment. We don't increase building coverage, we don't increase impervious coverage, we do not touch the vegetation of the site, et cetera, et cetera. No water runoff, extensive water runoff because it's the same site. So, and in the rear yard, as you can see here, we have this pie-shaped cut in the rear yard because of the existing lot. There's this pie shape here, which is about roughly 13 square feet. So to cut that off the building, we just thought it would be better to come to you
Right.
and ask for variance rather than cut that part of the building. So it's simply that is our presentation, that is our request to you, board, and we humbly present it.
Do we have on the record how many notices were sent out?
Thank you.
Yes. 46 were sent out, and to date, 22 have been returned to us with the notices.
And I actually received one more today, and so I have that in my bag if you would like that.
Just as a curiosity, did 19 come back to you?
I haven't seen them all back yet. Let me see if 19
Just a
did.
curiosity.
I can't imagine why you'd be curious.
No,
This is the latest one.
no. No, they did not come back. 19.
I'm Annalisa Corrales at 12 Livingston, and the neighbors to the north of me, the four homes to the north of me I've spoken to, and I've also spoken to the owner of the small home just to the south of our home, and they've all indicated that they have no objections, so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I have their confirmations in email, and I've spoken to them as well. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application? Move to close?
Second.
I move that the application be granted. All in favor? Unanimous. Good luck, Chief.
Thank you, board.
I strongly agree with you about the land use issue on the first applicant. isn't the right way to cite a house.
Right, yeah.
I was actually a little curious whether it might encroach on the view of the guy who lives in the townhouses up the hill.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting.
Motion to close the meeting?
Move to close.
Second.
All in favor, yes. We have